Hello, welcome to WightWanderer. It's a very wet September morning and we are going on
holiday.
And not just any old holiday, because we will be visiting 3 separate locations dotted around the UK. Starting by travelling up from Portsmouth to London, where we hop on the tube to King's Cross, the gateway to the north. Our first destination is York, famous for its Roman and medieval architecture and ghostly activity. Then we will be travelling further north up the East Coast Main Line and along the North Sea coast to Edinburgh, taking in the Scottish culture as well as a day trip to the Highlands and Lochs. Finally, we will be travelling down to Cumbria to visit the popular shores of Lake Windermere, the land of Beatrix Potter, and perhaps a little trip on a steam train. Before this though, we have to leave the island. Our first stop being Portsmouth Harbor, where we catch our first train. And here I want to explain about a little game I'm going to play along the way to pass the time. Despite the various tank engines located on the steam railway, train spotters on the Isle of Wight aren't exactly spoilt for choice. So on this trip we are going to see how many new classes of locomotive and multiple units we can spot that you can't see on the island. Our train, the 8:31 South Western service to Waterloo, will travel via Hatton before heading north to Guildford and Woking. The line itself was opened in 1858. The rival companies of the London Brighton South Coast Railway and the London South Western Railway both owning sections of the line, which led to many disputes on how it should be run. Nowadays, the trip to London may not be as romantic, but at least it's faster, more comfortable and strangely peaceful.
We honestly thought the train was going to be packed, but there is literally no one.
As we head into Guildford, 2 more to add to the tally. A Freightliner Class 66 on freight duties, and a soon-to-be withdrawn Class 455 EMU.
So we're just coming into London now. This is by far the most nerve-wracking part of the journey for me. I don't know why it is about London. I always get very nervous. It's a very robotic city. Everything moves very fast. But luckily, I have my fellow Londoner with me. Where are you from now?
I'm from Harrow.
Right, we are at Waterloo. So what we're doing now, we need to get the Bakerloo northbound Oxford Circus, I think it was, and then the Victoria line to, where we go? King's Cross.
Yes.
Does that say Bakerloo? Is that it? You have to be my tour guide now. Oh god, I've got bloody vertigo now.
As you can probably tell, I don't visit London much, but luckily the tube wasn't super busy. So we sat back and enjoyed the peaceful ride to King's Cross.
Made it to King's Cross with 27 minutes to spare. It's not bad. That went a lot quicker than I thought it would.
King's Cross is one of the most iconic stations in London, serving express services headed north to Leeds, York, Edinburgh and many other northern cities. Built by the Great Northern Railway in 1852, later on it became the southernmost terminus of the LNER East Coast Main Line. Once hauled by Gresley's iconic Pacifics, 2 of the most famous being Mallard, the fastest steam locomotive ever built, and of course, Flying Scotsman. Today, it is still a hub for high-speed express trains, with Lumo and LNER Azuma services, as well as the Grand Central, which is the service we will be taking today.
We are on the train to York.
The train to York. And why we stood up?
Because there are no seats, but also there are loads of seats in first class.
Yeah. But we can't sit in them because we're poor. We got the odd seats. The ones right by the doors. There's first class. There's the toilet. It's really awkward. People keep going to the toilet and I'm sat right in front of the door.
To try and distract ourselves from the comfy looking first class empty seats, we started talking about travel experiences. And soon the inevitable question came up. How far north have you ever been?
Bedfordshire. Furthest north I've been until now was Watford. See Harry Potter World.
No time like the present then to go visit some of what the north has to offer. And travelling up on the fast East Coast main line, looking out the window, it's not too difficult to imagine it being much different back in the days of steam. Without the drama and romance of a steam train to keep us occupied though, after a while we did get a little bored.
Well, at least we got our own room. No. Well, we made it. That was a horrendous train journey. Well, it wasn't horrendous.
Very tight.
Very tight, very hot, and yeah, but we're in York. We made it. We're in York.
York Station is the 5th busiest station in the north of England. Opened by the North Eastern Railway in 1877, at the time it was the largest station, to quote Clarkson, in the world. The station took a lot of damage during World War II. But luckily, much like York itself, it retains much of its original architecture. Before we leave the station to head off to our hotel, there is just enough time to add a few units to the tally.
Sunny York.
I know, British weather, innit?
Where are we going now? I have no idea.
As we stumble around trying to find our way in the Yorkshire rain, we actually come across another bit of railway history. Strangely, the massive 1877 station you see at York today was actually the third one built. The first one was temporary and built on Queen Street in 1839. The second, though, was a much more permanent structure, built on the other side of the city wall a year later. When the new station we can still see today was constructed though, the previous one was downgraded to a carriage storage depot. And although the lines are now long gone, the station building can still be seen. Luckily for us, our hotel is just around the corner. And as you can probably tell, Nell is rather pleased to see the bed.
So we arrived about 1:45, and on the website they said the room wouldn't be ready until about 3, but it was, which is nice. So we got a bit more time to go and explore York.
I found 50p.
Found 50p. Well done. We're 50p up.
Yeah, who's just in the corner?
Well, you're 50p up.
As much as spending the afternoon looking for change around the room would be fun, we decided not to do that, and instead head back out and have a look around the wonderful city of York. The city itself has been on our must-visit list for a while, mainly because of the incredible amount of medieval architecture it still retains, making York as a city highly unique. Our first stop was the Shambles, probably the prettiest part of the old town, famous for being the inspiration behind Diagon Alley in the Harry Potter film series. And if you're a Harry Potter fan, you may want to line your wallet before you pay a visit to this magical place. The Shambles is probably most famous though for its affinity with the paranormal. York, after all, is nicknamed the City of 1,000 Ghosts. Because of this, we had to take the opportunity to nab one each of the famous York ghost merchants' fantastic phantoms. After a brief refreshment stop at the local medieval pub, we went for a wet but wonderful walk along the city walls to have a look at some of its incredible ancient architecture, much of which dates back to the Roman period. The city was indeed founded by the Romans in 71 AD, and since then has seen its fair amount of battles and bloodshed, all adding to its rich history and spooky haunting tales. One of the places said to be the most haunted in York though is of course its centrepiece, Yorkminster. The vast Grade 1 listed cathedral you can see today actually dates from between 1230 and 1472. But a previous church stood on the site as early as 627 AD. This stunning early English Gothic masterpiece was dedicated to St. Peter and is the largest cathedral completed during the Gothic period. Although it was damaged by fire in 1984, it still retains much of its original architecture and stained glass windows. We could have spent all evening exploring the wonderful medieval streets of this incredible city, but evidently the rain was starting to take its toll. So we decided to treat ourselves to one of our guilty pleasures.
Can't beat the Five Guys. Right, let's dig in.
This was inevitably followed by what we like to call a food coma. So we retired for the night, ready for an early start the next morning. Day 2, and no trip to York is complete without a visit to the National Railway Museum. A perfect chance to add to the locomotive tally. Being a massive train fan, one of the locos I was most looking forward to seeing is Evening Star, the last steam locomotive built by British Railways. These massive Class 9Fs were developed as part of BR's standard fleet, designed to be the most powerful freight locomotive ever built in Britain. They had a very short service life though, as shortly after their construction it was decided steam would be phased out in favour of diesel traction. Still, 251 were built in total, with a service life of barely 10 years. Perhaps the only locomotive in the shed that could dwarf the 9F is this Chinese Government Railways Class KF, built in 1935. And as you can probably tell, it's pretty big. Of all the wonderful locomotive classes though, possibly my favourite was this small saddle tank, constructed by Black Hawthorn in 1874. There's something very special about a work-worn industrial engine. A chance to take a glance at what these small and vital locomotives would have looked like during their working days, bruised, scratched and overworked. Another locomotive I was looking forward to seeing was possibly the oldest one here, the famous Copper Knob, built in 1846. Named as such because of its ungainly looking copper-topped firebox. The star piece of the museum though is of course Mallard. This A4 class Pacific, designed by Sir Nigel Gresley, was built to haul the fast services up the East Coast Main Line from London to Edinburgh, passing through York along the way. And the same year it was built, Mallard broke the steam speed record at 126 miles an hour. A record that still stands to this day, 86 years later.
This is like my heaven right now. It's also torture because I know I'll never be able to afford this many models.
It's like the room of requirement in Harry Potter.
Like the room of requirement. It is, but trains.
I did eventually manage to distract myself though from the vast amount of models to spot two more locomotives. The first being this GWR railcar. But more interestingly was this Class 55 Deltic. If Mallard was the pinnacle of express steam traction, the Deltic was the same for diesel. After the phase out of steam on the East Coast Main Line in the mid-60s, Gresley's powerful Pacifics needed to be replaced by a diesel that could rival their speed and reliability. The answer was the Class 55, developed from the DP1 prototype of 1955. With its supercharged Napier power plant, it is also, in my opinion anyway, the best sounding diesel locomotive ever built. York is undoubtedly a glorious city. Our only regret is that we aren't staying longer, though I'm sure our purse strings would thank us for that. Even so, our stay was long enough to completely fall in love with the place. It's now time though to head back to the station and wait for our train up north to Scotland on the next leg of our adventure.
Well, York, you've been amazing. Thank you very much for having us. So much culture.
Oh yeah, so much quirkiness as well.
Yes, and the architecture is incredible. The people are lovely.
So friendly. I was overwhelmed by that.
I know, it's amazing. Pubs are incredible, which is very important.
Oh yes, definitely.
Absolutely. We like our rum, but soon we will be liking our scotch because we are heading to...
We are heading to Edinburgh.
You can at least do a Scottish accent. I can't do a Scottish accent.
Oh, it's like, I take the high road and you take the low road and I'll be in Scotland for ye.
Anyway, that's all for now. Thank you very much for watching and coming along with us for this trip. And we will see you next time for episode 2, where we will be in Edinburgh. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.